Okay, this is the February 16th, 2016 meeting of Raleigh Conservation Commission. This meeting of the Raleigh Conservation Commission is hereby called to order under authority of MGL, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Town of Raleigh's Wetlands Protection Bylaw, and the Stormwater Management and Erosion Control Bylaw. We are being electronically recorded this evening, and I'll now call the roll for attendance. Dave DeMonico, not here yet. Bob Garner,
Here.
Judy Keys, absent. Sam Strife,
Here.
present. Arthur Page,
Here.
Kurt Turner, absent. And Howard Vogel.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, we do have a quorum present.
Okay.
And
Why don't we go
may
through
I
administrative?
start with administrative things such as the very important thing of hoping that you will authorize my payroll. Can you please? And this is my hour sheet just for
Yep.
your review and signature. And then I do have a request for reimbursement of my cell phone allowance. And that's the backup receipt.
Yes.
Thank you, Sam. And also request reimbursement for office supplies for a set of ink cartridges for the printer. And this is the backup receipt packing list for your initial.
When is that meeting that you're going to be going to? On a Saturday. Is that coming up?
MACC conference?
Yeah.
Um,
It's next month?
Around the 5th. right?
Yeah, it's,
March 5th, maybe?
yes.
Is that a Saturday?
Yes, March 5th, a Saturday. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Okay.
Here it is.
Monaco. Right.
No problem.
7:30.
All right, yeah, so you've got these things.
Yeah, we'll wait for Dave to get settled here. I've passed the sketch plan around in conjunction with working with Dave Peterson, representative of the Board of Selectmen. We've been meeting with the YMCA, Ipswich YMCA folks, and also have elicited some unsolicited response from folks on Weathersfield Street about coming up with a proposal for public access as well as for the camp access. And I've also passed out to you folks sections of the proposed conservation restriction that we're in the midst of negotiating and hope to reach a conclusion soon with Essex County Greenbelt. And I highlighted a couple sections in the proposed language of that conservation restriction just as a a context and a framework for what we're going to discuss tonight in regards to this proposed public access. Specifically on the page that has, is it point number 12? Excuse me, I'm trying to read over. No, point number 9, next page.
Yeah.
Page 6, I believe. Go to page 6. I think it's at the bottom of page 6 and goes to the top of page 7.
Yep.
Number 8. No, it is number 9.
Number
I'm
9,
sorry,
yeah.
point number 9. So that referred to not expanding parking areas and other, basically the existing infrastructure that exists on the camp. Now, this has not been consummated yet, but using that as a guideline and trying to follow our normal hierarchy of avoidance, if at all possible, and then minimization. We've looked at the situation in regards to trying to facilitate the parking of some vehicles, working with the YMCA camp folks who have the need for security and also safe traffic flow because a lot of their campers for their programs are dropped off. And so I'd like to just go over roughly our proposal. We started off by inventorying the amount of parking. There's Lot A here, existing Lot B down here, and Lot C. This is adjacent to a building that a lot of us have referred to as the Vicor building because of the company that donated it. But basically we came up with an inventory of 63 9x16 parking spaces, and that figure is derived from the parking spaces that are lined out here. So within the context then, there had been discussion about the possibility of a new cleared parking area over here that would be totally separate and would maintain a separation and allow public vehicles to park, and then utilize the old Smith Lane Woods Road to gain access to go into the back conservation open space area. That would have resulted in a lot of clearing of native woodlands, a lot of excavation, trying to get across the roadway ditch, open up the stone wall here, and then provide access on this relatively sharp bend of Weathersfield Street where there might be issues about line of sight, possibly. But anyway, so instead of doing that, we examined the drive-in that is currently used right now, the entrance that comes in here, and realized that with just a slight widening, and by widening I mean I believe it's existing, it was 16 feet I think in width, and we estimated that 20 to 22 feet is all that was needed to provide two-way traffic. And so the proposal that would appear to result in a lot less disturbance, excavation, and again, following the guidance of avoiding new clearing or whatever, that area could be widened all the way up to the top. There doesn't appear to be any substantial trees or boulders or anything like that in the way. And then the Y-Camp folks asked us to consider a way that cars could loop around. In other words, not have to stop, back up, and then go against traffic coming up. And so we looked at the terrain, and in the back of this Lot B, which currently can accommodate 14 spaces, we saw that only through the removal of just 5 trees, and not large caliper trees either, just 5 trees and again some grading and filling, that it could be made to loop around, and you'd only lose 3 parking spaces in that lot as they pre-exist. But that would provide the continuity and safety of vehicle flow coming up and dropping off for campers to come up in this main building here, I think is where they coordinate their programs. So in conjunction with that, we asked the YMCA folks, if we could be allowed to dedicate 3 to 4 spaces in this lot here, sign them for public access only, and create a footpath through the woods there, which I've reviewed and would take a very minimal amount of work. And then the proposal is to ask the light department to sink some short sections of telephone poles and block off this end of Smith Lane and make it for just foot and hoof traffic. So that would keep pedestrians and horses totally away from the vehicle flow of coming in and out of the camp. And so we end up with some enhanced public safety aspects here. We don't clear a substantial new area of woods. The area that is only proposed to be cleared is probably 60 square feet. There. And let's see. Any questions? If I haven't explained everything.
How tight is that turning radius coming up from
Around
from
B.
lot C to lot B? Is that like a really tight turn there?
This is 46 feet wide.
Right,
This area is
but to make it around that little separation between C and B, is that very,
There's a lot of room there.
There's a lot of room there.
There's plenty
They
of room.
currently, actually, there's.
normal passenger vehicle? we
Passenger
shouldn't be a
vehicle,
problem.
They come up and they park in this lot as it is. They come up and they turn around and they park.
Okay, so it's not like a real sharp turn.
No,
They got
even
the-
even a full-length school bus would probably be able to make it without,
Okay.
a problem.
No, the scale here is rather deceptive or whatever. Actually, I'm not sure that they actually, I mean, they certainly could pull the school buses in there, but it would make more sense to have the school buses
They're probably not gonna be used.
disembark down here and then loop up through. The only thing that has to be done is just be careful about possibly maybe even just restricting parking from that side of the lot at all. But they weren't concerned once they realized they had this 63 parking spaces.
How many
They-
spaces do they use on a normal day and
Well,
what's
they
the lot?
didn't actually divulge that to us, but again, most of their current parking has been here, 15 spaces, and here in Lot B, which is 14 spaces. So apparently the drop-off and picking up is the substantial amount
That
of.
And what's the
of
present flow, what's the present flow for that? When they do how do they do it now?
Oh, what they've been doing now is coming up here and then exiting
Down that little road?
Yeah. And the problem with that
That road
The
is.
problem with that is that it's a trough,
Yeah.
number one, it's an old woods road, and they're currently using a wooden pole as a gate down here. And so then, again, there isn't any easy way for the public or people riding horses to get up in there without being in conflict with the same pathway that's trying to be used by vehicles. This separates the two, as I said, for what seems to be a very good safety reason and also with a minimal amount of disturbance.
The only tree cutting, like Brent said, is that little spot by Lot B, which is probably, I don't know, 20 feet, Brent, 30 feet maybe,
Yeah.
for the width of, say 12 feet wide. And
Yeah, we estimated
and we
20,
actually,
20 feet for the cutting.
by taking that and not using Smith Lane, we're actually adding, we're only taking a little bit of land, and we're giving back to leaving it wild, the Smith Lane portion, which is,
Right.
otherwise, Smith
Wanna
Lane is section,
maintain
if they were
that
gonna
tree
use that as a
line.
permanent exit, that would probably need some improvements over time. So this way here, it seems to be a win-win, and the Y was very cooperative in terms of working this plan out.
When would it be done, the work, proposed work?
We're looking
And
to
this
do it,
Spring, early summer, right?
well,
This year?
we want it done before the Y
Why
camp starts.
Okay.
They have their opening May 20th, I
Yeah.
believe they told us, so they would.
If
You have enough time in there to do that.
if we get your permission and the Board of Selectmen's permission, and then Brent's gonna talk to Greenbelt.
Yeah.
We'll look, if we get all those permissions, we'll get on with the highway surveyor, have the highway surveyor do some of the excavation work. We may have to hire someone to bring in the widening of that road and stuff will probably require some wind pack or something like that to firm it up along the edges, but it'll be a minimal amount of
Well, as a father who's dropped off his kids at several of these camps, from Boxford to Ipswich, they typically don't have very large parking lots. You know, maybe 30 vehicles, maybe. You know, the big thing is the bus drop off and that loop. That's their biggest thing. So this is ample.
Yeah, I think that they're apt to fill it, like if they have a Friday night campfire for parents or, you know, something along that line.
Yeah,
Yeah.
even
On
then.
occasion, they may have quite a few cars up there.
Yeah, even then.
On a
they
daily
probably
basis,
won't
it'll
break
be,
that.
You know, they indicated, and again, that parking is actually rather conservative.
Right.
I didn't, I only figured on nose-in parking along this section without any parking here, just because this width narrowed down to 42
Yeah.
on it, so.
Yeah, I've been to those midnight camps.
They indicated that that
campfires.
63 spaces was more than adequate for.
Yeah, oh, without doubt.
that would leave us 3 or 4 spots right by Weathersfield Street, so that people could come in, park right by Weathersfield by the entrance, and then there'll be signage put in across the way there for that footpath. That'll
Yeah.
go right behind the wall.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, so dedicated public parking right here, go on to this footpath, go over here, and then there's a whole proposal for signage that's gonna have to follow this, and then follow that, and follow signage down here, and then enter the conservation area.
So you'd have, in that, for the public parking, they would be delineated as.
There's gonna have to be posts with signs on it that say reserved,
short-term
public access
Public
only
access.
to footpath or something.
Why are you using telephone poles? Just ample.
Just because the light department has some, and
Has someone to do it for free.
they would make good bollards.
Well, rocks.
The only thing I can say on that is every time I do work for the state, they like to leave those for emergency and fire access. If we could maybe get the light department to, like we have down at the cemetery, just put the poles in and throw a cable on it.
Well, the big thing is, the problem we have out there now is because of that wooden gate across, people wanna go horseback riding up in there. And if we block it off like that, which would be fine for us, but you're gonna block the access for horses, so.
Right.
Yeah, the fire
probably-
department and the emergency vehicle people actually want to use the main
main road,
access drive because again, it's
That
a
brings-
trough and it's relatively narrow and they don't wanna scrape their bumpers or
And
whatever.
that's gonna fill in with leaves and, you know, it's gonna get some growth in there as time goes by.
Stop the vehicle traffic, yeah, it will.
Just soon they discourage traffic altogether.
Fine. Anybody have any questions?
Just for my edification, so why does Greenbelt have to be informed of, or what's their involvement?
Because they're going to hold the conservation restriction. Because it's town property, the town can't hold the CR, we have to have a disassociated other party
Okay,
qualified.
okay, thanks.
So, in the context of the same discussion, at the same time, I was talking to Mary Wynn Lathrop, who's the operations director for the YCAMP. She requested to know if they're looking to purchase an ATV to use on the Rally Camp property. It would be used for emergency response, hauling supplies, pulling the lawnmower deck, and transporting folks with limited physical abilities. Other than when mowing, we would stick to established trails and paths. Just want to confirm there isn't any problem with this type of vehicle on the property. So that section's also marked in there.
Yep, it names it, yep.
And I just wanted to make sure, I mentioned that I would bring that question before the commission tonight. And if you're okay with that,
Yeah, that's,
would it be possible to have a motion indicating the commission's support and affirmation of the two proposals, the public access and the request for that vehicle use?
I would make that motion.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Thank you. That was
That's a good safety
unanimous,
event.
correct.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You want this?
run into our first agenda item. Do you want to hold off on the budget discussion until?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
All right, this brings us to our 7:45. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Laws 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 16, 2016, at 8 p.m. at the Town Hall Annex, located on 39 Central Street, to consider a request to determine the applicability of an application filed by New England Biolabs for the proposed site improvements to be considered of a chiller pad, a generator
I
pad, a
handed
cooling
you the wrong
tower.
one.
You did.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it didn't
I
sound
handed you
right.
the wrong
Okay,
one.
you'll have to wait.
I apologize.
Didn't sound right.
Okay, we'll do the Rosemary Woods erase then, we'll start with take two.
Okay. All right, let me just check this to make sure this is the, yes, this is the 7:45. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 16, 2016, at 7:45, Town Hall Annex, located on 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent for the application filed by J.M. Dunn LLC for proposed demolition of existing structures and the construction of a commercial building with parking, utilities, and stormwater facilities, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands and the DEP-approved groundwater protection area, Zone 2 at 968 Havel Street, Map 4, Parcel 18, Raleigh, Mass. You got the floor.
Good evening. For the record, my name is John Moran. I work for the Moran Cameron Group. We're here tonight representing J.M. Dunn LLC for a notice of intent application for his property located at 968 Haverhill Street. Mr. James Dunn's actually here in the back, owner of the property. What Mr. Dunn is proposing, the plan that Brent has up on the screen is the first page of the plan set, which pretty much shows the proposed development. The plan I got here is the existing conditions plan. The lot's about an acre. It's located, I mean, it's good he's got the locus on here. It's about half a mile east of 95 as you're heading out of town on 133. It's on your left-hand side as you're heading out of town. There's actually two existing dwellings located on this property. And there's wetland resource areas that exist to the rear and along the left or easterly side of the property. The plan that I've got up here that's colored in, the purple is actually the perimeter of the lot. Route 133 is on the right-hand side. So we do have a couple resource areas to deal with under your local bylaw on this property. The first being 100-foot buffer zone from the bordering vegetated wetlands that exist. These wetlands were delineated by Seacamp Environmental. Pretty much up to wetland flag A15 was delineated by Seacamp. And then Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparagus delineated the remainder of the wetlands. And this property is also located in a Zone 2. So the Zone 2 is this line out right near 133. So really the only section of property that's not in your jurisdiction is that upper little corner out by the street. What Mr. Dunn is proposing is he'd like to move his business. Currently, he is actually leasing space out back to that existing property that's out back. Mr. Dunn purchased the property out front. He'd like to remove the two existing dwellings, build one building. It would be a garage with, an office and a bathroom. 40 by 60, not a very big building. And then build a contractor's yard where he would have his vehicles and he would stockpile grass clippings and mulch. We were here before the commission back in the fall for an RDA for soil testing in the buffer zone for potential stormwater management area. And at that time, we discussed a little bit, the mulch that would be stored on the property would be natural mulch. It wouldn't be the dyed mulch. And it's really only there for a few days, a week tops. The area that would be stockpiled would be right next to the building. And what we proposed, originally we were looking at doing this area as gravel. However, over time, maintenance, and dealing with, if you did have a spill, how would you deal with that spill when you're dealing with it in gravel? There's no way to contain it. So Mr. Dunn actually looked at, even though it's going to cost more money, he would actually pave this whole area. Of course, when you do that, now we're going to deal with stormwater management. So not only do we have the stormwater standards, but you have your stormwater bylaw as well, which pretty much mimics the standards. So what we've done is, the way this is designed is the roof runoff goes to its own separate system. We'd actually have a series of infiltration trenches, which then go to a couple of stormwater chambers, which then discharge. That is clean runoff, so you wouldn't have to treat it. All the impervious surface is directed towards these two sediment forebays. Because of the fact that we are in a zone 2 and we are in an area that has good percolation rates, you have to meet a 44% total suspended solid removal before you infiltrate. We do have great soils out there, as I had mentioned, but we do have a high water table. So trying to do conventional drainage with catch basins and underground piping doesn't work because you really don't have the height that you need to get that to work. So what we did is we had to regrade this entire area so it pitches back, so it all flows into this first forebay, which then flows into the second forebay, which then flows into the infiltration area, which then discharges out. It's got a series of pipes. Because it's so shallow, that pond is actually only about bottom of the pond 72, top of the pond 74.8. So it's really only about 2.5, 3 feet deep. So you really don't have the room to put a standard outlet control structure that we're used to. So really, we're kind of back to old school where a couple of pipes discharging, a low flow pipe, and then we just have the usual emergency spillway discharging if you get to the higher storm events. The one thing we are requesting from the commission, usually under your bylaw, the commission usually looks for a 25-foot no disturb zone. Currently, the existing land is used pretty much right along the edge of the property line, right in here. The only area that you do have a vegetated 25-foot no disturb is up in this location. And because of the fact that we have a high water table, the lowest part of the lot obviously is right next to the wetland. So as you start moving up into the lot, if you try to start designing any sort of stormwater management here, you can't make it deep because you don't have a whole lot of room. So you get two options. Either you have to make it wider and use up a lot of room, or you have to raise your site. And raising the site isn't going to, we're already raising the site as it is. Raising it an additional 2 more feet isn't going to give us the room that we need. So what we were looking at is when you're out on the site and you walk through this area, there are some big trees in here, but there's evidence that this whole area all through here was utilized at one point. And what we did is we went back into the old aerial photos and we submitted it with our application. You can see back in 2001, this area right around these trees that are in here was maintained at one point. It was cleared. And obviously over time, it's just started to grow back in. The other thing is, we are providing some additional treatment that isn't out on this site right now. Currently, there's actually a paved section right in here, section of pavement that we're going to be pulling out, and it'll be grass. One thing Brent had noticed when he was out on the site, we did have a site walk last week. There are a lot of invasives right along this edge of the wetland right in here. And we're gonna be talking to Mike DeRosa about potentially coming up with a mitigation plan for those invasives, as well as coming up with some enhancement plantings right along that edge of the wetland as well. So in lieu of providing a 25-foot no disturb, we'd be looking at proposing those mitigation measures in lieu of that 25-foot no disturb. And again, we are maintaining a 10-foot no disturb in this area, so we're not building right up to the edge of the wetland. But again, like Brent had mentioned, the buffer zone in here is pretty sparse, so we may even come up with some vegetation plantings right along that edge as well. Currently, the existing building is about 16 feet from the wetland. The existing pavement's about 25, and the proposed building's 30. And again, we are mitigating all of our flows through the infiltration chambers, and all the impervious coverage is being treated through the stormwater system. One thing we did request under this filing is under your local filing fee. For commercial use, your fee is $500 per building, and then 50 cents per square foot of disturbance. And because of the fact that your jurisdiction not only covers the 100-foot buffer, but the Zone A, the Zone 2, pretty much all the entire project that we're working on falls under your jurisdiction, which is approximately 33,000 square feet. So if you use a 50-cent fee, you're looking at a fee of $16,935. So what we looked at is the DEP fee for a commercial development like this is $1,050. So what we had submitted is an additional fee of $1,050, and we're asking the commission if they would allow relief to their bylaw fee and use a fee of $1,050 for this project. We do have to file site plan review with planning. That's been submitted. I believe the first meeting will be, I haven't heard back from Kirk yet, but I believe he said tentatively it was going to be March 9th. So we will be going for planning for site plan review. I did speak to Brent about the stormwater permit, because technically you're the overseers of the stormwater permit. However, planning will most likely, or they'll hire their consultant to review the drainage. And what we'll do is we'll ask them to review under the stormwater standard as well. And then once we get the review back, then we'll submit the stormwater permit to conservation with the approval from planning. So that's why you don't see a stormwater permit right now as part of the application. I know it's a lot of information.
Yeah,
I'll
it's
open it up to questions.
Nope, it's several things, but I think they're very good.
Actually, can I cover one last item?
Sure.
I had called Brent right when we had finished the design, talking to him a little bit about the submittal. And it was pretty much a day after he mentioned to me that the commission voted on requesting applicants to use the Atlas 14 drainage numbers. So I said to Brent at the time, we had just finished the drainage design, everything was all done, the reports were all finished, the plans were all done. I said, what we'll do is we're going to submit it, and we'll also analyze it under the Atlas numbers. So what I'd like to do tonight, and the planning board's consultant will review this as well, but I do have some copies of an evaluation of what we've done using the Atlas numbers. And as I had expected, I'll just give you 2 copies for now, if that's okay. Under the stormwater standards, you have to mitigate for the 2 and the 10-year event. And what you see under the Atlas standards, we mitigate under the 2 and the 10-year event. So we're fine there. Under our current design, using what's required under the regulations, we also mitigate for the 100. Even though you're not required to do so, but you do have to evaluate. If you do increase your flow, you have to evaluate the 100 to ensure that you're not going to have any impact.
Right.
Well, when you run the numbers for the Atlas numbers, we do now have an increase during the 100-year event. It's relatively small, it's 0.22 CFS.
Oh, I would have thought it would work.
So there's not a whole lot of flow out here anyway. During pre-developed condition, it's 3.8. Post-developed was 4.07. So, we've got an increase of about 0.22. The actual pond doesn't top, so the pond still works. So I think what the town's consultant will say is, you know what, they didn't use those exact numbers, but, 0.22 CFS into that wetland, won't have an adverse impact to the abutting properties. But again, I think the town's consultant will review those numbers as well. But I just wanted to get that out there as well, because Brent had brought it to my attention afterwards, and I told him, you know what, we'll evaluate it, and I'll bring those numbers to the meeting.
Questions?
Well, may I
Please.
suggest that
Sorry.
we start with the fee waiver request?
Okay.
Because that's kind of, well,
Make it a break.
it can look substantial. As Mr. Moore submitted, there is, from Google Earth, there is aerial imagery that shows a larger portion of the lot was maintained. The vegetation was manipulated. It may have been smoothed and graded. It may possibly have been either maintained as lawn, or it may have been an area for grazing. There's remnants of a wire fence that may have been some kind of pasture there. So the bylaw fee sheet doesn't make a particular distinction between previously altered areas and
What's happening?
areas that within recent memory are undisturbed and unaltered. But the commission does have established at this point in time, having given past consideration to applications that ran into the same type of thing. It seems rather evident that the reason for the adoption of that fee structure was to try to discourage disturbance and alterations going into areas that had not been previously disturbed. But there is no actual qualifying statement that says that. I can only surmise from looking at other communities' bylaws where that seems to be their same attempt for this type of economic disincentive for disturbance and clearing of the buffer zone.
Yeah, we've talked openly about how it's not,
Well,
certain
but-
situations is not correct. Doesn't appear to be.
Well, it appears that, it would appear, and the commission has made this judgment in the past, that reasonable people need to make some type of discriminating qualification in how that square footage assessment is actually applied. And granted, you can probably look at every single square foot, since Raleigh was settled so early in the colonization of this part of the North American continent, that almost every place has previously had something on it. But that's not the intent of the Wetlands Protection Bylaw. The Wetlands Protection Bylaw is to try and protect naturalized wetlands plant community and their associated buffer zone with its natural plant community. And if you walk on this site, you can clearly see where the past clearing was. You can see that mostly we've gotten multiflora rose, bittersweet, and buckthorn coming in now that the vegetation hasn't been being mowed and maintained as either field grass or turf grass, whatever it was intended to be. So I just wanted to offer that perspective from having physically been on the site prior to snowfall and having seen that.
Anybody else have a input on that or a question on it?
And
What do you feel?
my question to Brent is that I understand what you're saying, but do you have a conclusion or?
Well, it just so happens that on 970 Haverhill Street with Mr. Carpeno and his application, that the commission applied this same type of standard to it. They looked at the fee that was calculated using the Wetlands Protection Act regulatory fee structure, and they basically used that as their guidance for an assessment of the fee in that particular situation. Again, because it was very obviously a previously altered area, and in that case, there had been apparently permitted filling of bordering vegetated wetlands in the past, long before the wetlands bylaw, and so.
And he did remediation as well, didn't
Mm.
Yes,
he? Didn't he do replication?
well, yeah, he applied stormwater controls under the
The same
permit.
here, they're gonna be putting the stormwater control, so as far as
They have to.
environmental,
No
it's
choice.
not gonna.
What's your opinion on the improvements that they're doing as part of the plan?
Well, we're not a zoning board,
Right,
but we
in
have.
terms of the,
Well, but let me say that, though. You have to evaluate what their proposed development is of this site. That, my understanding is that that complies with zoning. And so, therefore, what I can tell you is that they have made every appropriate attempt, and even, again, honored and respected the fact that this development is in the Zone 2, and have designed the infiltration of their proposed building's roof runoff, and grading and treatment of the site, all within the framework of providing long-term, and I think that's one of the reasons why they went to a paved surface as opposed to a gravel surface, that you're going to get long-term durability. Yes, it's putting an impervious area there, but it's easier to maintain, and you're not going to get the snow plowing, the gravel, and a bunch of sediment and stuff going into their forebays. It's going to reduce the life expectancy of those structures and give them an increased maintenance burden, so.
Plus it's an environmental cap. If they do have some sort of a spill, they can maintain it a lot easier. What they normally do in the railroad industry is they just cover it over if they have a spill. So we obviously don't want that in a Zone 2 with good perk. Obviously,
Right.
there's
And that was
wells right
actually the
there.
biggest, that was the number one reason, is how do you control, an illicit discharge
Yeah.
on a gravel surface in a Zone 2? So,
Quickly.
Or at least manage it as best you can.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a plus in my opinion.
All right, well, what does anybody feel, or anybody in the audience feel about the fee structure? Does anybody have any questions or opinions?
Seems like if Dave Peterson from
Yes, Dave?
Newbury Road, and on the Board of Selectmen, but it sounds like a good proposal in an area that needs something like this to be built, and from the work that Brent's put in, it sounds like a very viable project, assuming it gets to everything else. I think a fee structure is such that if you can manipulate it to benefit him in this case, I think he's putting enough extra work and effort into the property that it'd be worthwhile
Exactly.
to give him a
Come up with
break on the
something.
fee and
Yeah.
be fair all around.
Yeah.
So the fee we're talking about is $10.50? Is that what I heard? That's a flat fee.
correct.
Okay, it's not.
Which is,
not
which
a
is-
unit cost.
That's the way the state does it,
Yeah.
Right.
so that's how we get that.
So it was the 10.50 versus the
16,000.
16,000.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
All right, so why don't we do this individual, since we have several things? So, everybody,
We need a motion on that then?
yeah, would you like a?
Yes, because it's a
Yes.
specific waiver, yes, there should be a motion
Do I hear a
Sign
vote?
it.
accepting
go
the
to it.
applicant's proposal.
To the reduced fee for a fixed fee of $10.50.
You want to second it?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye,
Aye.
opposed? So that's one thing down. Now Brent, the other thing was the,
I'm sorry, give me just a second here.
Yep.
Okay. So the motion was made by Howard, and who seconded?
I did.
Thank you.
The other thing was the 10-foot.
Yeah, the reduction in the no cut, no disturbance area.
Can I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'd rather have.
Question regarding that. This is a landscaping service, so I expect in the winter it's not as active. But I'm looking at that and I'm saying, where are you gonna store the snow when you plow it? And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, well, it's gotta be stored on that little, a lot of it. It's not gonna go into the sediment bay, I hope. So it's gonna go into the
Well, what it does,
area close to the wetlands.
the only place he can store it is right in here. And he moves all his equipment up towards the building because he won't have anything stockpiled here. And all this pavement, we've got a high point running along this back side of this pavement. So when that snow melts, it heads back towards the forebay.
Okay, is that indicated on the drawing?
Yep, all these spot grades, this is elevation 75.7.
Well, I understand the elevation thing, I'm simply saying the snow stuff.
Snow, nope, but we can most certainly add that.
My belief is it should be.
Yeah, we can add that.
That's typical requirement as we get into
Yeah,
issuing
it's
an order,
nothing,
is
yeah.
to stipulate where snow storage is. No, I was going to offer the perspective by the same reasoning that you can see evidence on the site that it has been subject to past disturbance and manipulation of the vegetation. You also see the same thing that typically occurs around agricultural fields, is that bittersweet, multiflora rose, buckthorn is taking advantage of that past disturbance and moved into that backing. The bittersweet is a particular issue there, in that it's a forested swamp that has not only a halfway decent shrub layer, but it also has a mature hardwood component, which the bittersweet is going up into, and again, around the edge opening that's provided by that lot, it is topping the trees, which is why I made the suggestion when I was out on the site visit as a means of being able to balance the fact that they've made the case that in order for them to provide a good, robust stormwater management system and provide an adequate yard for him to conduct his business, that they need that size of parking area. And so it seemed logical then to look at the plant community in the bordering vegetated wetlands and in what is going to be left as the portion of the buffer zone designated as no cut, no disturb, and seeing the component of invasives there that are having a negative impact, I suggested that proposing a mitigation, suppression, and some enhancement plantings once they're in a post-construction situation there with the grading and stuff.
Right, so
That
if you
would possibly,
Connect with DeRosa,
Yep, we put a plan
you're gonna
together
be
and
able to
submit
use
it.
that savings towards that,
Correct.
which is good.
And that actually helps the drainage for
Well, not only that, what
the
else?
future and everything else.
Then that 10-foot buffer becomes a lot better than the 25 that you would have got with no enhancement or,
You put a no cut, no disturb there, you're gonna end up
Control.
losing it all.
right.
right, yeah, we just get overwhelmed with the bittersweet and the multiflora rose.
Now, not being on the site, and the only things that you've mentioned for invasives were those three, I believe. What, since the business is cutting and storing things and stuff like that, and what's the other invasive that, it's kind of like kudzu? The,
A plant you're
Phragmites?
thinking of?
no, not Phragmites, but Phragmites would be another one.
Jungle weed,
Japanese knotweed.
The knotweed, which is brutal.
There isn't any of that I saw there.
Yeah,
currently, so.
what I'm concerned with is with the type of activities that he does, anything that could end up, being moved to the site.
Right.
Anything that he cleared
Yeah.
that had.
And I'll
And
talk
ends
to-
up being a problem.
I believe that anything other than lawn clippings goes somewhere else.
Right.
So I'll talk to my client about that.
Yeah, I mean, he should know what these things look like, so
And he
if he
does.
just keeps his eyes,
Yep.
you know, where he should be, you know, and that idea that we don't want to promote other invasive species, you know, that's why you're spending all this.
Right.
You know, and it's gonna end up costing you more money in the long run, so be advised.
Yep.
Cool.
It's my understanding that the stormwater management aspect of this is not final yet. There's still, independent consultant is gonna review this for the planning board, correct?
Yes, the permitting pathway here is submittal of a notice of intent for potential order of conditions, submittal of, is it?
Site plan review.
Site plan review
Yep.
with the planning board. And since the size of the disturbance triggers the need for a stormwater management and erosion control bylaw, the stormwater management bylaw encourages applicants to get either the issued order of conditions or the site plan review issued by the planning board and utilize technical consultant that's triggered in that planning board process to review the site for the compliance with the stormwater bylaw, so that all those quote-unquote issues are resolved before they come and actually submit an application for a stormwater management permit. So,
So we can still ask questions about the stormwater component at this time. Just,
right. Well, the situation is, we also do not have a file number issued from DEP, and we fully, I believe, Mr. Moran, fully expected to give the commission permission tonight for a continuance in full acknowledgement of the fact that he hoped to get stormwater issues confirmed and resolved and addressed through the site plan review process with the planning board before coming back to the commission to finalize things with an order of conditions. And I don't want to be putting words in your mouth, but that's what we talked about, if I remember correctly.
Right, and Brent's 100% correct. I should have actually brought that up, but he's 100% right. We wouldn't be asking the commission to close the hearing until we're through the planning board's consultant. Because
that would
obviously,
be
we don't want to
when
close
we
the
get the
hearing and
order
then
of
find out we
conditions.
have to open it back up again.
Right, well, and again, he's also talked, that we would wish for a continuance anyway, because he's talked about requesting DeRosa Environmental to prepare a
Correct.
mitigation, suppression, and enhancement program, and so we would like to see that before closing and issuing an order also. But if the commission is amenable with us pursuing that and allowing the applicant the 10-foot no-cut, no-disturbance area, with the idea that that would be matched with environmental enhancement of the adjacent resource area.
okay, well, I'm fine with all that. I mean, there's one thing I did want to ask you about, in particular about the stormwater management system, was in your infiltration basin at the south end of the site.
Yep,
You have 3 outlet pipes, correct?
correct.
You have 2 8-inch pipes?
Yep.
And the one going to the southeast, I thought I saw this on a larger version of the plans. It looked like it was labeled as a 2-inch pipe.
Yep,
What does the 2-inch pipe do?
it's a low flow orifice. So, yeah, what you saw, this plan, it's got a much bigger detail. So, the invert of the 2-inch is 7315, where the invert of the 8 inches are at 7360, so it's about a half a foot lower. So it just drains that pond that much more. You know, we have great soils out there. I probably could have just put the 8-inch, but by having that 2-inch in there, you know, you've got about a foot of water that infiltrates down through.
And it slows it down too, so.
Correct.
Okay, I would just be concerned about a 2-inch.
Clogging.
Yes.
And, you know, we're back into the old style. You know, we don't have a structure, we don't have, so, you know, and I'm sure that planning board's consultant's gonna review this, but
I think
the
you'll
way we've
comment
done
on
it in the
that.
past
Yeah.
is, you know, you take the big river rock, you surround the inlet pipe, So you're pretty much creating a barrier around it. Water's gonna find its way through there, no problem. But all the big stuff, all the leaves, they're not gonna find their way into it. And you're not gonna be able to mask the area that you have for the water to get through there with enough leaves that'll prevent it from flowing.
Perhaps. Well, if you have
Yeah.
any rogue leaves, though, if they do find their way in, they won't find their way out.
Right. But the one nice thing,
And the way that you just described it is gonna be a real pain to be able to go in and fix.
not necessarily, because the rocks aren't,
Large, how?
I mean, they're big enough that if you got a guy with a bar, you could push one off
Okay.
and then bring it back. Now, the one nice thing about it, since it's not enough, we did look at doing all underground, but the nice thing about having a detention pond is you see it. If it's clogged, you're gonna know it. And you're gonna see that it's clogged, and as soon as, like I said, we got well-drained soils, as soon as that drains low enough, you can go right in and take care of it.
Now, that hump that we see at the bottom part of the shaded portion there of the screen, that's
That-
basically your emergency overflow?
Yeah, that's just a stone spillway, it's about
Right.
8 feet wide.
If it maxes out, that's
You
where
got
it
it.
goes?
I
Okay.
mean, actually, during the 100-year event, it does start to trip out that. But again, that's just so you have a controlled location, so it's not spilling out all over the sides.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah, I understand that. I'm just concerned about the 2-inch pipe, that's all. I'm curious to see what the independent consultant says about that. That's all.
Any further questions?
Anyone in the audience wish to comment?
Anybody in the audience have a question or want to ask a question or have an opinion? No. Do I?
So we need a
So
motion.
if we have the applicant's permission for a continuance,
Well, do we want to make a motion on this?
On the 10 foot?
10-foot?
no.
Wait until.
Actually, you don't need to, because that would be covered in the conditioning, the conditions
As a
that are
condition.
incorporated in the order of conditions, so as long as the commission has indicated a consensus that the applicant is pursuing the
Right, that
right
we
track
move-
here.
Exactly, we'll move forward with meeting with DeRosa.
We'll be seeing you again. obviously.
Correct.
All right, so to have this move forward, we want to have a
One of the
motion.
commissioners needs to move the continuance.
Move, so move.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Brent, do you have the,
Now, that's gonna be an open continuance, because we'll wait to
Exactly.
hear from you.
Yep.
Based on you submitting.
when is
new
the
information.
next meeting?
8th, March 8th.
March 8th?
Our next meeting, yes,
March
at the
8th.
bottom of our agenda.
And just like you said, Brent, if we're not at a point that,
We've got March 8th and then March 29th.
we'll just request a continuance in the next meeting. Thank you very much.
No, it's dry. It's already out. Kept them out for 8 days. He's still kind of trying to get over it.
I've already read this one. Get this one
Yeah,
memorized.
there you go. You can rewind that tape.
Practice makes perfect.
Yes. This is this will be our 8 PM item. Let me make sure it's 8. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, a public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 16th, 2016, at 8 PM at the Town Hall Annex located at 39 Central Street, to consider the request to determine the applicability for the application filed by New England Biolabs for proposed site improvements consisting of chiller pads, generator pad, cooling tower, dunnage, subsurface tank and pad, concrete walkways, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone bordering vegetated wetland at 428 Newburyport Turnpike, map 18, parcel 3, lot 1, Raleigh, Mass. You have it.
Good evening, Charlie Ware, Meridian Associates.
Yep.
New England Biolabs is the applicant on this one. This is at the Ipswich Bay Glass property, it's known as Ipswich. This is the building which is furthest to the right. There's a loop road that comes in and over on the right-hand side. I think I can put this up as well. The existing building is constructed, the shell of the building. The parking lot is all constructed, everything is there. And they want to put a tight tank because they have biological waste that will run into that tank and then be pumped and taken off the site. They don't want that getting into the septic system. That will go in this area. They're proposing and it's shown in this sheet as well, but in this area is a proposed generator pad, and then there's some other pads that are proposed in this area for, it mentions a chiller and it's kind of an odd name that they use, I can't remember what it was, but there's a number of pads which are in this area, and there's the underground tank. So that underground tank is within the buffer zone, and some of these pads are also within the buffer zone. The area drains down, this is all high, everything drains down into this catch basin which runs through this is a storm scepter unit, and then drains off into the resource area, which is further down gradient of this. We've done this as an RDA. This pad, not this pad, but this tank should be, it's probably a 3-day, probably a day to dig the hole, a day to drop the tank in there and backfill it, and probably a day after that to pave it. So it'll be mostly about just watching the weather and doing that work in a time span that where it won't rain for 3 days. And if it does happen to rain during that time period, the intention would be to put a silt sack in that catch basin, because any sedimentation would be headed for that catch basin. There's an existing bituminous berm along this area, so there really isn't any way for sediment to get into the resource areas except via that catch basin. So that's basically the project, and we thought it was applicable as an RDA, and we did have the opportunity to discuss this with Brent as well, and I believe he concurred, but I'll let Brent speak for himself.
Is that all hot topped?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So it is hot top now, and it will be.
When we're all done, it'll be hot top too.
Or concrete pads for
Yeah, I see
some of
the concrete,
facilities.
but I meant like over that and around in the drainage area. It's all.
Yeah, it's essentially done. In fact, this is the subject of a certificate of compliance a little bit later this evening, because with the exception of the building, the skin of the building is up in New England Biolabs. It's going to move into it. There's a fair amount of work to be done inside the building, but the exterior of the building and the parking lot all around it is complete and has been for some time. These are just ancillary utilities, essentially, that are being placed to service the special use of this building.
Questions?
No.
What's going into the tanks?
It's biological waste. They produce gene splicers, so that that's what's going into the tank. It's a double-line tank. The tank is a permit from DEP which is required for this, and we'll be obtaining that permit.
My understanding, this is a result of discussions and consultations with the Board of Health as well as DEP in regards to the particular type of infrastructure that would satisfy the most cautious approach to handling this.
Yeah.
Not that there's any hazardous criteria or whatever attached with this, but it was just felt that the separation of this process water and not having it go through into the septic system was
Yeah, that's all
most
regulated
precautionary
anyway, so.
approach possible in handling this.
Yeah, interestingly enough, yeah, I mean, I think folks are erring on the side of caution. Interestingly enough, we did the design over in Ipswich, and it is, there is tertiary treatment on that one, because that's a groundwater discharge permit. But it was not a groundwater discharge permit because of the effluent, it was a groundwater discharge permit because it's over 10,000 gallons a day. But interestingly enough, in Ipswich, the effluent that's gonna be captured in these tanks and trucked off-site is directly run into the treatment facility, which is approved by DEP. And so, I think perhaps people are erring on the side of caution. There's no chemicals this is literally, what they do is they kind of, again, they make gene splices. What they find is that enzymes are created by different bacterias, and they actually get those enzymes from bacterias, and those enzymes end up cutting genes at certain places, because what bacteria use those enzymes to fight viruses, to kill viruses. So what they're kind of milking bacteria in order to get those enzymes that they then sell to different health. And I'm not exactly sure what they use them for, but they literally the gene will splice at a particular, because you have different chemicals. I'm not doing a very good job explaining this, I'm an engineer.
You get that.
But they literally, once you get a certain, like, say 1, 2, 3, 4 molecules happen in a row, what'll happen is this particular enzyme that's produced by bacteria will splice the gene
It
right at that
targets that,
spot.
right.
So they can literally kind of milk the bacteria and say, okay, this enzyme will split this gene at this point. And that's how you go about studying DNA and genes. So it's just bacteria and enzymes. There's really nothing, there's no special chemicals or any other than probably cleaning products. But,
Do you have any questions from the audience or anything? Anybody?
So my recommendation is that this appears to be appropriate for negative determination, option number 3, with some conditions for the work occurring in the buffer zone. Now, I do want to state that myself being precautionary in nature, there is a catch basin located at this point, which the vehicle access, this is the access drive that goes up to Route 1 Newburyport Turnpike. This parking area continues on, so there is one catch basin over here. And I'm just going to say that I believe it would be appropriate to condition this project not only for having the silt sack in this down gradient catch basin, but also having that temporarily protected probably by a donut ring of straw wattle at the time that the trucks are exiting the
Coming in.
site
Yeah.
filled with the excavate that they're going to take off-site. Again, just as a precautionary nature, just only for the time that they're actually doing the excavation and hauling excavate off the site.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the only,
It's
that's
just
the only
temporary anyway.
weak link in the trucking of
Sure.
that disturbed material.
But you're fine with just having that blocked on this end?
Yes,
Is that what-
there's also the provision for erosion control. This is a gravel parking pad here. There's a provision, and it's noted on the plans, that erosion control would be put in place there, because that does slope down to that, and that's the one part where there isn't a berm
right. Correct.
on there, because that is going to be later on used for backing trucks in and out. So-
And that could just be a sock or something like that?
Yeah, again, a section of straw wattle that's just positioned down there at the time that they're doing the actual excavate. And once they cut the hole, put the tanks back in there, and are waiting for it to be repaved, all the issue about possible sedimentation goes away. There's, much reduced risk after they've done all that work.
Any further questions? Do I hear a motion to accept accept the, what do you call it, number three?
Negative
Negative
determination, option
determination.
3 with the conditions as discussed.
So moved.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Who seconded it? You're so fast, I was like.
Quick and efficient.
So, if I may, we do need some signatures.
I'll help. In accordance with the Wetlands Protection Act, Mass General Law 131, Section 40, as amended by the Town of Raleigh Wetlands Protection Bylaw, public hearing will be held on Tuesday, February 16, 2016, at 8:15 at the Town Hall Annex, located 39 Central Street, to consider a notice of intent for construction of a gravel parking area, revegetation of abandoned paved driveway, possibly within a 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands and 200-foot river frontage area of Bachelor Brook at 428 Newburyport Turnpike and 340 and 344 Weathersfield Street, map 18, parcels 3-1, 5-21-1A, and 5-22-4 in Raleigh, Massachusetts. Go ahead again.
I'll start. This really involves moving an existing detention pond to a new location and creating some needed gravel area where the existing detention pond is located. A lot of this land is newly acquired, so
Yes.
this was the opportunity to do it.
Right.
We're trying to move that pond in conjunction with eliminating the old driveway and that home site that's back there.
Didn't we talk on this?
We have talked about
Yeah, a
that.
month or two ago, yes, okay,
This is kind of formalizing it.
okay.
I guess, we basically came to bounce the idea off you.
That's right, okay, that's what it was.
And then we proceeded to do the engineering to move the pond. That's the way you remember?
Right, and we have a stormwater management permit that actually covers the driveway removal and revegetation, but it didn't include this
This.
basin concept because they were in the process of doing the necessary field work to ascertain whether that was going to be a viable spot.
So the driveway is almost on top of that brook in places.
Yeah, yes, I know.
So the general idea is that we'll use the driveway to access this work for the pond. And then as we back out of the site down towards Weathersfield, we'll remove the driveway and remove, there's 2 or 3 I guess we've
We've
ascertained
come up
there's
with
3.
an additional with 3 now.
Yeah, there's 3 culverts to be removed that go under the driveway now that are just
Right.
little things.
Yeah.
And then, once we're down to Weathersfield, we're done. It's revegetated,
Yeah.
we'll block it and
Excellent. Is there anything unusual on that moving of the pond?
The unusual thing is probably that we're moving the pond.
Don't normally do this.
That we're actually doing it.
It's not a house.
Yeah, it's unusual because generally you don't move a pond once it's in, but the reason why, as Sandy mentioned, is because we've obtained additional lands.
Right.
And this area, which is directly next to building number 5, that is of a premium. It's a useful area for us, and moving that pond over is is important to the operation of the building.
And that pond is substantially lower than the parking lot area now. So it's almost like it's a natural place to put it.
Yeah. Excellent.
It's down the hill.
Anybody have any questions?
Obviously, there's plenty of capacity for any storm event, I would think.
Well, and actually, this is changing the function too, isn't it?
Yeah.
This one's an actual infiltration basin,
Yeah.
correct? And
Yes.
the other one was more a detention.
It was a wet pond.
Wet pond, yeah.
Yes, it's changing both, the infiltration basin has additional capacity, we're using water into the groundwater. And it's also, the volume is also larger as well. I think the idea Sandy has been saying to me from the get-go is make it as big as you can, because I don't know what I'm gonna do in the future.
Yeah, we don't wanna go back there again.
Yeah.
We're moving it.
We're gonna take offense
We built
to
it
that.
once, now we're moving it, so let's just make it as big
Yeah.
as reasonable.
Now, there is one aspect to this that is also different too. We have an existing established complex with stormwater infrastructure that currently is collecting and sending water to the existing basin or pond. And while this new infiltration basin is being constructed, that other basin has to continue to perform its function, fully in case there is some kind of storm event. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna just point a little bit. So we did discuss that the do-si-do, if you want to call it that, is going to be the construction establishment of this basin, getting this piping up to this point established and not interfering or tying in. This is up on the shoulder of that pond, so it's not going to detrimentally impact the functioning of the pond itself. And then when this is established and capable of receiving stormwater, there's going to be the changeover, the disconnection of the piping that's going right now and contributing water to the existing basin, and the rerouting and going over here, and then the decommissioning or filling in of that area. So that is, and I did, I did request Mr. Weir prepare a sequence for us,
Yes.
specifically addressing that, so we'd have that all prepared, and it wouldn't be someone on the project saying, oh, I've got a little spare time, I think I'll go over and I'll disconnect that, whatever, like.
So there are phases to this.
Yeah, well, we kind of,
Phases, because we need that functionality for the stormwater management system until such time as the new one's capable.
Looks like you've got plenty of height though. I mean, you've got,
Yes. Oh,
yeah, so I mean, it's all natural once you,
Yeah.
yeah.
Charlie and I talked about that, and I think there's a fair amount of coordination that has to be done. And I think it's going to come down to almost a little bit of an inspection process. We can put the new pond in, have Brent inspect it, and then coordinate the timing of, because I think the timing is going to be best done with a 10-day forecast in mind,
Yeah.
and then make the call as when we
Make the switch.
make the switch in piping.
Sure.
Because the piping is not going to be a lot of work. We can get everything close together
Yeah.
and then say, okay, tomorrow we're gonna do it.
But because you've got so much difference in the height, I think it's gonna be it should be an easy process.
It should be. And just.
Be different if it was
Yeah.
flat, you know?
It's the same thing as opening the ground for the tanks and stuff previously.
Right.
We just coordinate it with the weather.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to do that when we go down the driveway to take out those
Same
those
thing, yeah.
Culverts and everything, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's liable to be July before we take those culverts
Yeah, I
out,
deal with
because-
the water
yeah.
and that's,
Because everything's gonna dry up.
yeah.
And Brent suggested at the site walk that we add a sequence to the plan that I agree that's what we should do. I held off on doing that because I was hoping that we could come here tonight, if there's any other changes that need to be made to the plan, I can add that sequence as well as any other changes you might have, and Brent will confirm. that
Well, I think we just have to also
sequence.
readjust the notes or whatever to reflect the fact that more of the, the complete driveway is being,
That's another piece of the puzzle that we need to show as well, because I think we're, on this plan, we're showing, that's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
second one, and I think there's even one beyond that, so we need to,
actually, this is where quote-unquote the proposed end was.
yeah,
'Cause
exactly.
That's one, and that's one right there, that's the
Right.
two culverts.
But we were gonna leave that one in place.
We're gonna leave the large 36 or
And then
48
there's
inch one, and then
one
there's a
beyond that.
smaller, like 16 or 18 inch reinforced culvert.
Right, so that all needs to be added to the
Yeah.
plan, that's correct.
Yeah.
As I said, by the time we use that as the construction access, there's not gonna be much pavement left. I mean, the pavement's in deplorable condition now.
It'll get nothing but worse anyways.
Yeah, it's only like an inch thick.
And I'm sorry, Charlie, did you do return receipts for the abutters, or did you just do a certified mailing?
We did return receipts, and I think that we included the slips, not the green cards, but the slips with as proof of mailing, we included the slips with the NOI. But if you want
Right.
the green cards, I can get those too.
Well, I was just gonna say, if you did do the green card, yes, please submit the green card.
Okay,
Now, we
we'll get
also
those
have
over
not,
to you.
and DEP has not issued a file number.
Yeah, because we just filed it.
Right.
They seem like they're a little bit slow on that right
Yeah.
now.
So,
For my 2 cents worth, I think that the inspection process is the way to go, because
Oh, right, yeah.
things are gonna change a little bit here.
that's
There's
not the,
always
that's not the
some
question
minor
here. The
details.
the question here is rather to recommend to the commission that we close the hearing process tonight,
Oh, okay.
or whether we leave it open in case there's some type of commentary. I mean, my recommendation to the commission is that we've recently issued a notice of intent, order of conditions to the same property for construction of the basins, so I would propose that it be the same type of conditioning on this. The difference here is that we have the driveway removal and revegetation project going on, so that would be a separate section of conditions, and we just talked about, really about the only thing that I could think of too, was that requiring the culvert removal during periods of no flow or hopefully low flow, dry period, usually end early part of the heat of summer, so to speak. And we had also talked about the use of erosion control matting or whatever to revegetate those quote-unquote trough areas, and just establishing herbaceous cover on the roadway with the intent that, as we discussed later in the evening, the gift of land, that more than likely we're going to have pioneering and succession from the existing forest around there that will slowly reclaim those areas. And so therefore, since it's just a small residential driveway, there isn't really the need to necessarily require that there be actual planting of saplings and stuff, that as much as we get a full thick vegetative cover for herbaceous layer,
They
that
just
should
call
be
it a
fine.
New England meadow mix, I think.
Right,
And
yeah.
then, like you said, pioneering and secession will take over from there.
Yeah,
We already have a
Gonna happen pretty
stockpile
quick.
of topsoil that we've been saving for the driveway.
All right, so that would be a negative determination,
no, this
Nope.
is an order of conditions.
order of conditions?
But I'm suggesting that we might want to wish to see if the applicant would give us permission for a continuance, just so we can get the file number and make sure that DEP doesn't.
He probably won't have to come back in, because I know he doesn't want to, we already told us so.
And then so we can work
It's not
out the
a
details.
Right, well,
That's my bet.
Yeah, and that's gonna give time for Mr. Weir to make revisions to the plans and submit them for my review and stuff,
And
and
then
yeah.
closing the hearing should be a
unless-
formality, we don't need to.
That would just,
It's-
right, nobody would need to, it would be
Exactly.
actually based on our conversation with Brent, so. Would you guys be fine with that?
Yeah,
And would you people be fine with that?
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion?
So that would be a continuance to our meeting of March 8th.
This is all gonna be dry weather work anyhow.
Yeah, it has to be, it won't be done now.
So move.
Okay, all in favor?
Second?
Okay, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, you've done an excellent job out there, by the way.
Thanks very much.
Really, really good.
It's coming.
Yeah.
We're getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, 18.
You're not gonna have anything to do when it's all done.
Yeah, you,
That's not good.
I'll have to retire.
yeah.
No, don't try to do that. Let me tell you.
This is administrative, so there isn't a legal ad for you to
Okay.
read, if, at least if I'm on the correct schedule now. let's hope for that.
8:30. Yeah, do you want me to read this one here?
Yes, please.
This is a new request for certificate of compliance, number 63-62-3, for 420 Newburyport Turnpike, map 18, parcels 3 and 3-1, and 340 Weathersfield Street, map 18, parcel 5, lot 21-1B, 420 Newburyport Turnpike LLC, construction of two commercial building additions, stormwater facilities, and utilities and grading. Again, you have the floor.
This is the,
Yeah, this is just.
this is those two, the area where the two detention ponds are in the top center.
Yeah.
Enclosing that order of conditions, those ponds are built and been revegetated and.
Yeah, these ones up here.
Yeah, and it was, at the time, it was for this addition and this addition. That addition's not constructed yet, but it's outside the buffer zone, so.
All right.
So this is just cleaning up the paperwork, right?
Anybody, anything
So
you
in
want to
that-
say? John?
Well, so in that regards, we do have a situation that I'd like us to address, and that was, there was an enforcement order issued due to a erosion gully rill blowout on this site that resulted in kind of significant sedimentation that established quite a pronounced gravel plume that extended down into the bordering vegetative wetlands to the rear, down below this large boulder retaining wall where some Jersey barriers had been used to keep his storage trailers from being backed over the edge. Unfortunately, the Jersey barriers also acted as a concentrator for significant runoff in one of these very pronounced flash rain events that ate through his gravel parking area and carried it all down slope about 50 to 60 feet. So we have received today electronically a report from DeRosa Environmental in regards to resolution of that. It was rather immediately cleaned up, and then monitoring of the site was done. And really it mostly resulted in just hand scooping up via spades the gravel plume that had been deposited, and then allowing close attention to the erosion control, stopping any further runoff from getting there, and just allowing the herbaceous layer to recover, which it has. So in that regards, as a separate request, I would make a recommendation, if the commission would so move, that a return to compliance letter be issued, which is our standard way of closing an issued enforcement order when the reason for the issuance, the violation has been rectified and the area restored.
Do I hear such a Motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, this is 63-623. So the next item, I had a conversation with Mr. Weir in regards to this plan is being utilized for two requests for certificate of compliance. I made a request that it be looked at due to the nature of the scale that was used here as to whether, basically whether this could be split. And we could go from, I think it's a 60 scale right now, we could go to a 40 scale that then would have this portion of the site represented on it and then this other portion represented, as well as I made a request for specific verbiage that would identify that permanent signage had been installed along the no cut, no disturb. Also, that the no cut, no disturb as a restricted area, you'll note the commission's normal standard is to have that filled, highlighted, hatched, or dotted so the restricted area is prominent on the plan, since this becomes the permanent record and since that's a permanent restriction.
I see he did that on the one we had two previous before that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the problem is that this particular plan that we're looking at
Yeah.
does not have that, and I don't know if Mr. Weir can respond as to whether my grocery list of requests, whether that's all doable or...
Oh, yeah, that's doable.
Okay, okay. Now, I did notice in going through the various conditions, and I had an email exchange with Mr. Patrickin today, and we've made arrangements to meet on site tomorrow to do an entire walkthrough of his complex to see that the no cut, no disturb signage is everywhere. This is over and above because this site has been developed with a different chronology of various orders of conditions, which prior to my service to the town did not necessarily require signage along the no cut. But Mr. Patrickin has put signage along the no cut, no disturbance.
Using the rule of thumb
Right.
of 150 feet.
Line of sight.
Yeah, line of
In this
sight.
particular
Yeah.
situation, we don't have a robust herbaceous layer, we don't have exponential shrub sapling layer that's going to overtake these posts. They're very clearly discernible from his project site, the ones that I've seen in our site visit the other day. I did also find out that we had conditioned that rock salt prohibited signage be established at the two entrances to the site because the commission had required that sodium chloride not be utilized as an ice preventative measure, and did allow other more, what's considered more environmentally benign, I think magnesium chloride or calcium, magnesium, something like that, calcium chloride. I think.
What do you use now? Is this sand or?
As little as possible.
Yeah.
We use
It's fairly flat.
some sort of benign ice melt on the walkways. But as far as the roads, we just scrape them.
Right, what was the other, what was
The other
thing in
issue was-
email today?
Piling snow.
Yeah.
But I have a question about that.
Mhm.
I mean, most of the snow gets pushed onto the shoulders of the detention ponds,
Right,
because the detention ponds happen to be pretty strategically located.
right,
And, I mean, so when it melts, it goes into the detention pond.
right.
When it rains and it's not snow, it goes into the detention pond.
Well, like I noticed by Building 6 when I was there today, I think just putting a sign on the light post that's there that says no storage area.
Like I said, we can walk that tomorrow. So
Right.
we're gonna walk tomorrow, and we're gonna make sure that we've got enough of these little wetland signs around, and I'm sure that we're gonna come up with the need to add a couple more.
The
And if we
main,
need
the
to
main
add a
point
snow-
here is
Snow
that,
storage signs.
is that the project is substantially done. These are relatively minor details that a willing applicant and your willing agent can more than likely resolve. And then office review of the revised plans that then become the record, the permanent record of the as-built conditions of the property. That if the commission is comfortable with that, I would suggest voting to issue contingent upon those things being resolved,
I'm sure they will be.
voting to issue complete certificate of compliance for 63-23 with
No,
The
63
following-
dash
533.
533.
533?
Yep.
So,
No, 623 is the first thing on the
Yeah,
agenda.
okay.
623.
Oh, you're right,
No,
okay.
we're doing 623. So anyway, back to my thought. Contingent upon those issues being resolved, a complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions numbers 55, 56, 57, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 73, and 74.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Yes. Sign, thank you.
We usually like to have that stuff wrapped up in about 2 weeks. Unless there ends up being some unintended impediment to some signage. Okay, if you could read the agenda item for the 840.
840. This is a new request for certificate of compliance, 63-533 for 420 Newburyport Turnpike, map 18, parcel 3, and 340 Weathersfield Street, map 18, parcel 5, lot 22, 420 Newburyport Turnpike LLC, construction of 3 light industrial manufacturing buildings, associated parking area, landscape utilities, sewage disposal systems, and stormwater management facilities.
So my discussion to the commission is exactly the same, with the same various things, except this is for 63-533. And again, with the contingencies as previously discussed, which I believe are the same. The commission might wish to consider issuing a complete certificate of compliance with ongoing conditions number 23, 24, 26, 27, 30, 31, 66, and 68.
And what basically are those? Just
No cut, no disturbance zone, salt
Signage.
prohibition, maintaining, maintenance and inspection of the stormwater facilities, the snow storage, the no permanently keeping functioning the no cut, no disturbance signposts.
do I hear a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second it? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
How many acres do you have?
52, I think. something like that.
Forget.
On a dry day.
On a dry day, right?
Well, we sold some of it off. We sold the residential
Right.
stuff off a few years ago. It was down on Weathersfield.
Yeah.
And then we've since acquired a bunch.
Yeah.
And we're looking to
Get rid of that.
get rid of some more. Do you wanna throw that other one up?
Yeah.
If you guys got a minute?
Oh, yeah, we,
Get out of your hair. I'm sorry you're waiting for me.
oh,
I'm sorry.
Okay, it's the Sandy Patrickin Show. I think I've got the plan on this one.
That's what, pink, the pink is April. That's what happens when they let her choose her own colors.
So basically, what you're looking at is the pink, what's in pink, we're proposing that the town accept as conservation land.
yes.
And Brent and I are negotiating the terms of use of the land, but basically, what it's coming down to is, we don't want anybody on our side of the brook, right? Even though the town will wind up owning land on our side of the brook, just because the existing lot lines are there and we know where the nuts and bounds are. I don't see any need to resurvey it.
What's your concern then for not allowing? so
Well,
you-
let me,
Yeah,
if I may, let me read his communication,
yeah, I read that.
or at least part of it that refers to their request for some of the conditions in this. So this is a letter dated February 11th to the Raleigh Conservation Commission. And it identifies the parcel with their assessor's map block and lot. And then the following, so the land identified above is to be donated as is without any additional changes or improvements. This is contingent upon the driveway.
Driveway being
Right.
closed, yeah.
The following restrictions are permanently placed on these parcels and agreed upon by the parties. Number one, the town will not sell the land. Number two, the town will not build any permanent or temporary structures on the land. Number three, the town will not create or allow walking trails, camping areas, picnic areas, or any other public use of the land east of Batchelder Brook. Number four, the town will prohibit any and all types of hunting on the land. Number five, the ethos of this agreement is that the land will be returned to nature and remain unchanged and unaltered by the town and unmolested by people. Number six, the town of Raleigh acknowledges that this donated land abuts commercially zoned land that is used in a commercial capacity and will not make any attempts to restrict the use or operation of the commercially zoned land, either now or at any time in the future. These terms are to be irrevocably included in the conveyance deed.
Can you reread that last one?
The town of Raleigh acknowledges that this donated land abuts commercially zoned land that is used in a commercial capacity and will not make any attempts to restrict the use or operation of the commercially zoned land, either now or at any time in the future, period. Now, this has not been submitted to town council.
That's what I was gonna say. This has to go,
And
It
there,
sounds a little creepy, but
well,
No, the last
it
one.
sounds very good,
That's a bit
actually.
of a problem.
there are
Let's
some
reword.
things that may be beyond the power of, number one, of this commission, or of the town of Raleigh in general. And there are other things that the normal procedures for the Conservation Commission accepting land that it deems to have a value to be conserved as open space and for natural resource protection. There are certain levels within the Articles of the Commonwealth of Mass that we incorporate in the acceptance of such land to provide it a level of protection. That being said, the state legislature, in its infinite wisdom, does have certain abilities that go beyond and may possibly, in the future, not allow things to be as set in stone as we wish them to be. But
The rules can change.
the rules can
We're-
change. Yeah.
It's subject to
That's
negotiation.
life.
Right.
I mean, we just want to try to make sure that
Yeah, I
the
know.
town doesn't come and say, well,
Right.
and this
Yeah,
is a phrase that
understood.
I've heard a couple of times. Oh, I know I bought that piece of land, and I know it was right next to commercial, but I never thought you'd develop it. So, and I've heard that a couple of times
Yeah.
over the
Oh, yeah,
years.
Yeah,
well, I know,
yeah.
we have to.
Yeah, but we seem to be on the same page that the town wants to restrict it for security concerns for the little campers. We want to restrict it because we don't want the little campers in our backyard.
Right, you don't need the liability or theft or anything, yeah.
So the brook is the natural barrier.
Yeah.
And long as, that big triangular shaped piece up there is good high ground, and it's quite usable.
And it's on the other
Yeah,
side of the brook.
It's on the other side of the brook, and it's quite usable as
Can you point out
camping
where is
space.
the brook?
I think that, well, the brook
Does the brook end right there?
No.
Well,
The brook
no,
forms the
goes
boundary
in-
on this section. You want to
It
go
And then does
straight
it
up.
cut, then it
It
cuts
kind of
in?
goes,
Oh,
kind
so
of
camp on the other
runs
side of
through.
that brook?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it goes across here, meanders, and actually goes out in
Yeah.
this direction.
Into a
So
big,
there's
huge,
plenty of high ground on that.
So now
wet
this-
meadow.
There's actually a stream there.
This is already conserved because this is the Dodge Reservation
Right.
up to about here.
Right.
So this area
That's
is
private.
already.
Well, we know what you want, and I think it's excellent. But I think as far as conservation goes, we have to, the town, we gotta turn it over to the selectmen and then,
Well,
Well, I think that we now have something that we can, a
Right.
document we can submit.
so what I was going to propose, first off, is that the commission issue a consensus to delve into and seek permission to be able to utilize the services of town council to respond to some of this, these requests for restrictions. There are certain things that, in my limited ability, will probably be the best that we can do to meet these requests
Sure.
from you folks.
Yep.
Like I said, within some statutory constraints that we have. There are other things such as zoning that the Conservation Commission, once it has protected open space, I'm not aware in the 11 years I've served the board has ever got involved in commenting on zoning. On any parcel, be it adjacent to open space or not, just because that isn't our role or our statutory authority doesn't extend into zoning. And
That's not my attorney's verbiage, that's just our feeble attempt at it.
Yeah, so
So,
let,
we kind of.
let council look at it
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're thinking
discuss.
that, with this plan that visualizes
Yeah.
pretty clearly what the intent is, that you can submit it to the
Yeah.
town council.
and actually, your notes, I think, were very to the point, and I think.
yeah,
Could I just
That's good.
ask a quick question? Brent, when we were talking to Mary Lynn at the camp, that's the brook that she wanted access to from the campsite. To
yeah,
the
from the
salamanders and-
campsite. Well, and the reality is where this jog occurs,
Yeah,
one of their sites with tenting
Right.
platforms is right there, another site is right here. And so they already do have the ability to go down to the brook, and the issue is not the utilization of the brook. The issue is if the commission established some type of crossing and made some type of marked trail that facilitated public access to crossing the brook and
which
getting.
they weren't looking for anyway.
Well, and neither are we, to be quite honest with you.
My other question is, now that triangular portion, it's north or whatever direction it is.
Yeah, this one right
On the
here.
other, that's where the brook, you say the brook kinda goes
The
through
brook
that.
sort of goes here,
Yeah.
and I think goes off in that.
Now, I don't remember what it said, is it okay if they walk through that part that's
Sure.
on the far side of the brook?
Yes.
You just don't want them on the
This
We
side.
don't want it
one
on the lower
side
part,
of
if you will,
the,
yeah.
For security,
yeah.
yeah.
No, I can understand that.
The channel of the brook in that area is very pronounced.
Right, okay. No, that's fine,
In my guidance, because of our discussions that we've had with the YMCA folks, and knowing that their concern for security of their young children that are in their charge, I have no intentions, nor does the commission have any intentions, of facilitating public access
No, no.
trails to go over in that area just because of it being in close
we
proximity
don't want
to
any
those
hunting or any of that stuff out
No.
there either, so.
Yeah, and the
That
property.
sounds fine.
Property, yeah, the Dodge Reservation's already restricted.
I guess
from
my
all
only,
hunters.
How
my
wide is the
only,
channel?
my
How wide
eye
is the
was
channel?
raised when it said that any
How
kind of
wide is
commercial.
the channel over there?
15,
Roughly?
20 feet.
Yeah, 15, 20 feet. Yeah.
So
And
that's-
it's
that's
really
pretty good
banked.
natural
Yeah,
barrier.
it's pretty well banked on both sides. It kind of flattens out as it gets down to Weathersfield. But Brent and I have put some thought into this. I mean, the lower part, I had considered retaining and putting some walking trails in just for the enjoyment of my
People-
tenants.
Yeah.
But I said, I think the security issues from both of us outweigh that, and that's why all that down by the street is pink too. We just said, Enough.
There's the environmental considerations too. We all know that the commission had violation issues with the former owner of the property adjacent to the brook there. And in recognition of that, that property actually deserves a period of rest and restoration all on its own. And the riparian corridor, the area on both sides of that stream, their heightened wildlife habitat value is enhanced by not having public access, or public access walking trails. And so,
So you never see a need, my only concern is when you sign something that says never, and then 20 years or 30 years from now, it might be determined that, boy, it would be nice to have a path that kind of circumvented the whole, came in from Weathersfield from that side,
I'll be
came
very
around.
honest with you.
I'm asking you, is that
I know,
no way
I've got 180 acres of the Dodge Reservation.
that it makes more sense
That-
for paths? Okay.
Yes, as well as the fact my marking of the perimeter boundary over there has taught me that there's much more extensive wetland areas associated with Batchelder Brook and the beaver activity that Batchelder Brook
Okay.
has seen, that there's higher, drier places,
There's better mountains to conquer?
there's lots of opportunities, other
No, I
places.
just thought I'd ask you that as to
Yeah.
whether.
Yeah, no, it's a very fair question. As well
I'm
as.
very concerned about security back there.
I hear you.
Yeah.
Sure, you don't want anybody coming in your back.
And I don't want anybody getting hurt.
No, you get the liability of it.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like with the camp there, it's pretty much,
What are you gonna
anything
block?
back there is gonna be on the other side of the brook related to the
Yes,
camp.
yes.
The public doesn't have access, or not supposed to have access to the camp anyway. And, on that part of it, so that.
Right.
I'm happy with the lay of the land, the way it is now, from a natural state point of view. And without people back there doing anything, that's just gonna be enhanced.
Well, it sounds like it'll blend right in with what we get to the camp and the other
Yes.
property that we got adjacent, the whole reservation there, that it should work out, it shouldn't be a problem.
All right, so we should make a motion to forward this.
A motion to indicate our desire to accept, contingent upon working out with town council and coming to an agreement in regards to the requested restrictions, as well as the directing me to seek town council's time for said consultation, and also to go to the Board of Selectmen and seek their authorization for acceptance, with the potential that hopefully this could be an article at town meeting.
Do I have such a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right.
You guys have done a great job, the whole property is very
Thanks very much.
complimentary to the town and
Yeah.
and the area
Very
around
good,
there.
yeah.
Really,
All
really
done.
looks.
We work
so
at
much-
keeping it nice.
No,
Yeah.
even the landscape and everything is just incredibly nice.
Any town would be fortunate to have something like that.
Yeah, we don't wanna lose it. that's for
No.
sure.
Unfortunately, some of the surrounding stuff makes us look better.
Live and
always
learn,
helps.
right?
But this, Mr. Patrick should be complimented. Again, the environmental criteria that makes this property such a gem to the town of Raleigh is the Batchelder Stream corridor, the final protection of both sides of the banks
Absolutely.
of that riverine corridor, as well as the protection and buffering it gives to the Y-Camp.
All those pieces out there
Yeah.
are all coming together one by one,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
it's really gonna be.
From no
fantastic
plan to
area.
good plan, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Well, thanks for your time,
again.
guys.
Yep.
Good luck, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Take care.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to keep you folks.
We're at the 9 PM, what's
I
that?
love that section where he put down, and the town would take no further actions against the company
With the zoning,
inside.
yeah.
Well, you know, it's just, it's written, he was putting a point for it. It's just that if a lawyer saw that, they'd say, wow.
Yeah, that's why it's time for
Subject to
council.
negotiation.
Yeah, it's a,
That's your request. Come to a negotiation.
Okay, so close that.
this is an enforcement order, do you have right above it, right
Yeah, enforcement, right above.
right below where you are now?
Yeah, no, I was looking for his, I think it's this. Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
Okay,
Sorry, I always go for the bloody pictures.
okay, just want me to read this, or do you have a?
Okay, the commission at their last meeting voted to issue enforcement order dated January 26th to AAK Realty Trust, Andrew Kasuba, trustee, for 524 Newburyport Turnpike for failure to establish and observe the 25-foot no disturbance strip next to bordering vegetated wetlands, alteration of buffer zone by construction of detached mulch storage building and installation of fencing, and failure to obtain applicable permits under the Wetlands Protection Act and the Wetlands Bylaw of the town. So we had a confirmatory site visit on Friday. I know I don't normally work, but I came in to go on site visit. And we confirmed that in fact there are bordering vegetated wetlands there, and that the fence in the inventory storage area, which appears to be pallets of PVC fencing, is within what the 1997 decision had declared as being a 25-foot no disturbance strip. That the concrete block mulch storage building, which has a roof on it over on this end, is within the 100-foot buffer zone of bordering vegetated wetlands that are situated mostly off property, but still the 100-foot buffer zone definitely extends there. And so,
Go ahead, you got the floor.
My name's Tyler Ferrick, DeRose Environmental. Here representing the client, Alexandra Strack, that's sitting behind me. She's here tonight. And here tonight to figure out how we're going to move forward. Mike DeRosa did the delineation, and Brent was out there also. And after a further review of that determination, Brent pretty much summarized all the key points. So moving forward, we just kind of wanted to see from you what you're looking for on how to move forward regarding the situation out there.
so my recommendation, which we had expressed in the enforcement order, was to complete and submit a notice of intent application. Had put an advisory here to try to accomplish it by March 14th with the actions that would be appropriate to address the issues of noncompliance and to bring the site into compliance with the 1997 determination of applicability. One of the reasons for requesting a notice of intent application is the need for surveyed plans to accurately depict the relationship of some of these things, and so that we can have a discussion, which we'll start to do tonight with the commission, about certain things that I think need to be quote-unquote an exception to the 25-foot no disturbance strip over in this area. The first one being the fact that this security fencing comes up to like 10 or 12 feet off of the flagged wetlands line. But the location of that particular row of fencing doesn't mean that the inventory and the storage area in here can't be adjusted and pulled back and then have the 1997 determination of applicability called for a planting of a row of shrubs. If the commission is still amenable to that, I believe that could be implemented without, again, a lot of disruption to how they currently use the site. The perimeter fencing that was actually depicted on the 1997 determination is established, goes over here, does go off in a slanted direction and comes, again, relatively close to the delineated edge of bordering vegetated wetlands. But that doesn't mean that, unless the commission says so, I don't think that means that it needs to be taken out or relocated. I think it just can be left in that position with just the acknowledgement that if there is an opportunity just beyond that fence to make sure that there's a non-disturbance area. In other words, we can do sort of a variable width type thing to try and meet the spirit of what the 1997 determination was trying to accomplish. Over in this other side of the yard, which had no permit authorizing any of that development or structure being in the 100-foot buffer zone, there certainly seems that there is plenty of appropriate room with the adjustment of just a couple of pieces of parked equipment to establish a 25-foot no-cut, no disturbance area. And then more than likely just the establishment of posts with signage, if that's what the commission wants, which is what we normally look for, that could be accomplished, again, within the same application.
Yeah, let me just say something here. I
Yeah.
think we spoke about it this morning, if not, I meant to. When you were saying like leave a couple posts in on the northern section there, and then where they were originally supposed to, 10 years ago, have planted shrubs, what is that vegetation now? Just,
Well, it's storage yard now.
No.
It's gravel pad with pallets of PVC
oh,
fencing.
there is no bench, no,
No,
okay,
Trying to
no,
bring
it
back
didn't
into
get
line.
done, even though it was supposed to be done on the plans.
all right. Okay,
The proposed plans never fully got implemented on the ground.
all right, so, yeah, so I was gonna say, leave the existing vegetation, but obviously there is no existing vegetation.
No, I think
where we're
the
talking
gravel
about, so that
fill
would be
that
good.
has made the storage area for piling that needs to be pulled back and probably just maybe some supplemental loam or something put in there. And then a planting with a couple of no cut, no disturb posts to establish what that is supposed to be.
Especially to
You know,
keep any runoff.
in other words,
going into it.
in other words, you pull back these
Yeah.
palletized materials and respect a 25-foot offset to the flagged wetlands.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the easiest thing to do, and it makes the most sense in
How about a
practicality.
berm?
Pardon me?
What a berm?
It's, the site is not draining in that direction at this point in time. At least there's no evidence on the ground. That's a level area, there's no sign of any gullying, any channelized runoff
That's good.
coming from their yard.
Yeah.
Now, the roadway, of course, the runoff is going
Yeah.
to the wetlands from the roadway, but that's a different,
So there was supposed to be a line of shrubs that were,
yeah.
so we're saying they should do that.
Well, it's up to you folks.
Well, it seems like.
But in most cases, if it seems like it's
Well,
doable,
it was told to be done
usually,
before.
usually today's commission will honor
What
what
the
the intent
previous-
was of the
Yeah.
previous commission unless there's some quote-unquote issue. I mean, that's going to kind of accomplish sort of a restoration
Yeah.
of that impacted area that right now is just a gravel parking or inventory storage area.
And you won't be
And
losing
you're
that
not
much
talking
road,
a
no.
lot either, you're only
Yeah.
talking maybe 10 feet, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be a landscaping yard, so it's,
They look nice.
they're
yeah.
gonna be capable of doing that stuff. And you're not gonna see it too much because of the screening that security fence provides, but the important thing is that it gets the activities in the man-made disturbance, it allows that plant community to act as a buffer and reestablish itself, which is what it was supposed to be. And over in this area, again, it's mostly just the parking
Just
of
move
equipment.
the,
The building itself, I believe, has plenty of offset between that delineated line to already allow the establishment of a 25-foot no cut, no disturb. I only saw one metal fence post sticking out of, there's probably a fence post with the concrete that got pulled out of the ground, that just got pushed over the edge there, that just needs to be picked up, and that small excavator we saw that just needs to be moved.
I have a question. Okay, so there's a few things. We're selling the property to a landscaper. In '97, we didn't own the property, so for 3 or 4 years, the previous company didn't do what they were supposed to with the vegetation. Now, I have a deadline of February 29th, I'm supposed to pass papers. So, do we have to have shrubs? Can we do those giant concrete
Obviously, you
blocks?
can't do shrubs this time of year. I mean,
Obviously, right, and that's another whole thing, like, I can sell the business, but I can't sell the land until the spring.
Have you spoken to the purchaser about this?
Yes.
What is he?
He has
what they-
suggested using those giant cinder blocks and using that as the barrier.
Well,
instead.
what happened with the gentleman before you is he put those giant cinder blocks in, and they're a good dam, but right in between them is where the water, or right underneath them, will go, and they're not as nice looking, but the bushes would probably be cheaper, just,
Well,
Cinder blocks, do you mean Jersey
Jersey
barriers?
barriers.
yeah,
Well, again,
and it's do something.
not all of this dates from 1997. This fencing and this storage yard here was established sometime between, it's not there in 2005, and it is there in 2007. Our wetlands bylaw was in effect January 2004. So there was unpermitted development and work done here which violated that 1997 restriction, but that was all contemporary. That was done during the time our bylaw was in effect, which allows the establishment of a 25-foot no cut, no disturb.
So can this, be transferred on?
You know, those are legal questions. I was asked the same question, and I believe I responded via email, that we've had situations where property has changed hands and where either violations have been known or issued permits have existed that haven't been completed. And so within those examples, I know of situations where the parties have come to some type of agreement with the holding of funds, either in escrow or some type of bond, that the work gets done. I don't, again, I'm not an attorney, but I don't see that this situation is any different. We know the discrete things that need to be done to bring this site into compliance. It would seem to me that there should be the capabilities of an estimate being developed, and then on whatever, again, seeking legal advice, that arrangements be made. I mean,
So I mean, if she transfers, she gets an agreement, and so that this order will be passed on to the purchaser. And then he'll have this hanging over, can she do that, and then they come to an agreement
Again,
as to a figure? Or, okay.
You're
That's all
beyond
legalese.
my legal expertise. All I know is that usually, again, we've had examples, we deal with them constantly, where replacement septic systems is where the property changes hands, the septic system is either put in but isn't stabilized, and there hasn't been vegetative growth, or we've even had situations where the septic system isn't in yet, but all the parties have done whatever the financial arrangements are for that work that has a permit to be done. So, you know, I may be naive, I'm certainly not an attorney, but I think if you get an estimate for what the work's gonna cost, and then if the buyer and the seller, through their legal counsel, can, you know, make whatever arrangements that provide certainty for
We're
that.
not talking a lot of money here.
No,
Moving
I-
equipment, which costs nothing,
No,
and then
Plant some bushes someday in the
planting
spring.
some bushes
Right,
in
and
the
just
spring, and then
filing.
have call up after they've been in there for a month or two, call us up and have somebody come down and take a look, and
I mean, you
Take
certainly
another
can
look next
figure
year.
things out. Again, we've said there's a notice of intent filing, so one could calculate what the fee is for that. The bylaw fee for that is double what it would normally be, because this is a violation issued. You then know what a surveyor is going to charge to do a plan. You then make a contingency for the no cut, no disturbance posts being represented on the plans or whatever. You've got a wetlands consulting firm that should be able to come up with a quote for the planting of bushes, the pulling back of the gravel area, the establishment of some of the posts. I mean, it seems to me like someone would be able to come up with a fairly reasonable quote of money, and then the parties just need to come
Yeah, I
to.
think we've done one before, and they set up an escrow account in
Yeah.
order to do that and complete it.
and,
Same kind of situation.
I mean, I don't wanna hold her up, I don't, you know, I can imagine you're probably sweating bullets or whatever.
Yeah,
I
it was
mean,
supposed to be done last month too,
Yeah.
so.
yeah,
The potential buyer is actually texting me because he's watching, and he said recommended with using a silt sock.
Erosion control is a standard condition.
yeah, that's a temporary,
But that's just temporary.
That's
until-
temporary.
That's until disturbed soils get stabilized, so.
and Brent said that nothing was washing into there right now, but we just want a stand back so that you can't use it, which would be like by having bushes.
Okay.
So he wouldn't need to do that right now.
Okay.
When he goes to plant
The
some
work-
bushes, he would need that.
When the work
And
is
that's
being done, that's when those things are.
We just need to establish that 25-foot
Right.
barrier.
Right,
So that's
just
the
removing
plan.
that one panel
Yeah.
from that
Yeah, just-
security fence.
No, the fence doesn't, no.
Fence
no.
can stay.
The
Don't even have
commission
to-
will allow the fence to stay
Okay.
there, but it's the gravel area that's being used right now as a pad for piling the pallets of fencing material.
Okay.
That would need to
Just
be
have to be
pulled
moved back a bit.
Okay.
In fact, it's
And
almost
that's
better
what
if you leave the
vegetation
fence
will
because
Right.
we don't want disturbance.
Agree on that.
Yeah.
Say what? I didn't hear that.
Just bring some of the PVC, the
Materials
fencing stuff
back.
forward, and then the
Away
vegetation
from it.
can go.
The bushes
Right.
would then be.
Right behind where it was, yeah.
And so what do you recommend for bushes, just out of curiosity?
Well, this person.
Well,
this
well,
guy-
well, We're gonna look at the wetlands guy.
Go to the guy who.
Okay, all right. We're just trying to
Okay.
You already
see
paid
how
for him.
fast I can get this moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got all the things I
actually,
need to.
you ought to be able to come up with a pretty
Yeah, you should.
reasonable, complete quote
Yeah.
in regards to this.
Yeah, definitely. So no, I think we got all the things we need to do. They're currently doing the survey, and we'll get that together and do the notice, and we'll be back.
Yeah.
Great.
And then, like I said,
Anything
you
we
just
can
put
do
a
to help.
contingency for at least one revision
Yep.
of that plan to, then reflect what ends up being done, how many posts, where the posts go,
Right.
what the planting is, and
Yep.
reseeding and stuff. And yeah, I mean, it's a
Yep.
it's a finite, discrete job that doesn't seem like it's got a lot of complexity to it. But yes, it does deserve, and I believe it is appropriate to require a filing for this to
Okay.
establish.
Yeah, the main thing, that plan. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. Good luck.
Need any motions?
I don't think so.
No, because
I don't
We haven't done
believe.
anything.
Well, he issued the enforcement order, and the site visit pretty much verified that what we suspected as violations were in fact the violations there, and that the pathway to resolution, the filing of a notice of intent application, was what we recommended in the issued enforcement order, so.
So it's just closing it once the work is
Yeah,
done.
well, yeah, I mean, that's up to them, though. They need to submit an application and work out those arrangements among the parties that are involved in this.
Just wanted to make sure you were happy.
Yeah.
He's got you scared. All right, what do we have for status reports?
Actually,
We gotta go back to the beginning, right? Did we forget something?
the budget.
The budget, yeah.
May we go into the budget, please?
Past my bedtime.
Yeah, well, not alone.
Oh, listen.
Excuse me.
We went to midnight.
I try to get it
Doing
going
every
fast. I try to get it going fast.
So I guess I might as well jump right in.
Yeah, that might well.
And I'd like to request the commission's support on the desire for the Conservation Department to add a secretary to our office staff. I believe I can make a substantial and well-documented case in the need for a person to assist me due to the heightened responsibilities, the increasing need to render written documentation and written decisions, the need to respond to inquiries by citizens, which in many cases in this day and age take the form of emails, which then require a written response. And even though that might seem that that has facilitated communications, it actually imposes a burden that your written words and your written response needs to be able to stand the test of scrutiny. And sometimes it needs to also be very measured and appropriate, and needs a certain amount of research in order for you to actually even get involved in responding to certain things. And you may have noticed that my office space shows a lot of pieces of horizontal stacks of cellulose, indicating both the Commission's expanded responsibilities under the Stormwater and Erosion Control Bylaw, for which I desperately need a file cabinet to keep track of those new permits. But anyway, So what you have before you is a proposal to add secretarial position. And I'm going to make the further request that in consultation with Town Administrator Deborah Egan, I thought it appropriate to request the 16 hours a week of secretarial services.
But you have
But-
6 here, though.
Right, that is, I would like to request to the commission in order to help facilitate. Now, this is a position that, as near as I can tell, has not been staffed for 16 years. The commission used to have a secretarial position. I believe it was around the year 2000, and it was under, I believe, the service of Mr. Tim Puritan as the agent for the town. I can't find, I have no definitive records that actually go quite that far back, just that that seems to be the budget sheets and everything have secretarial position situated on them, just no funding in the time period that I've served the commission. And there is a job description that talks about the Conservation Commission Secretary. So there is a position that was voted on, what the heck is the guy's name? An earlier chairperson, Witherspoon, I think, signed off.
John Witherspoon.
John Witherspoon received okay from the Personnel Board for that position.
So how many hours?
So
does
the,
she have?
so the request here is that the commission has notice of intent monies, which can only be used for administration and enforcement of the State Wetlands Protection Act. They can't be used for the town's Wetlands Protection Bylaw. They can't be used for the Stormwater Erosion Control Bylaw. They can't be used for normal office secretarial duties. So, in my estimation, that would make it appropriate, if the commission would so choose, to authorize through the use of the Wetlands Protection Act monies, 6 hours of that 16-hour position, which would result in approximately $5,000 or $4,979.52. So I would seek authorization from the commission for that use of Wetlands Protection Act monies, which currently the balance as of January 27th this year was $43,277.10.
So the $8,299 that you show here is the, that would be the
That
full
is
amount?
from the, that
From the
would be
general
funded from the general
And then
fund,
an
yes, from the
additional-
town budget.
And then an additional
Right.
4 would be, so about $12,000 would be the total,
13,000.
or 13,000 would be the total.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, 13,279 to be exact. It's down on the first page, it's expressed. Now, the commission would need to vote to authorize the use of that $4,979.52. And then it also have to be directed to go seek the endorsement of the Board of Selectmen for the utilization of those monies for that purpose. And attached here, yeah, we've got the different displays with the hourly wages, both the budget wages for the secretarial position and then the NOI, which would be a weekly charge or amount of $95.16.
Now, I already talked with Brent on this, and I come down here several times a week, and he is definitely in need of,
Some assistance.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Dave Peterson, Board of Selectmen representing the Personnel Board, we did meet with Brent, and I did talk to Debbie Egan,
Yeah.
Town Administrator, just before coming here, and we strongly, although the Board of Selectmen hasn't voted to do it, I don't think there's going to be any opposition. We strongly recommend that the position be brought back because of the as you guys know better than anybody, the amount of work and time that Brent puts in is just incredible.
I keep catching them on Fridays.
Yeah, I mean, the man he's just everywhere, and every time we make a request of him, and particularly now with the stormwater management, which is just growing from year to year, and the whole town's gonna be facing issues with that, any kind of secretarial administrative help would certainly benefit the town as well as him, to free him up to do other things. So I'm strongly in favor of it. Town administrator is, and I don't see any opposition coming from the Board of Selectmen, and we'd be more than happy to support this at town meeting when, as an increase. These are the kind of things that we're growing, the town's growing, the responsibilities are growing. It's long overdue, actually.
I think I can speak for Kurt too, because Kurt was in on the conversation, so it's up to you guys.
No, I think it's a great idea.
You want the right people doing the right kind of work, and,
Yeah.
really feels Brent, free you up to do what you do.
Well, it would help, again, it would be a team effort, and the department definitely has it has the tasks and the responsibilities that make doing an adequate and professional and a job that the citizens of Rowley can be supportive of. It really needs another person to help run that department efficiently.
How does this impact the help you're getting now, presently?
2 hours a week of senior service from Jean Blanchard.
Okay. Will she continue to assist?
She intends to. It's just
in this capacity, or?
Well, there's enough tasks for all of us. And, she tries as much as she can for 2 hours a week, but there's
enough. There's more than enough
There's
work.
18 hours of
16 hours
of
extra.
work available to do so. But I'm just trying to start with what appears to be a sustainable and measured effort that seems appropriate.
Sam, do you have any? No. I think it's unanimous.
I think
Yeah,
it's
we
overdue.
definitely have to. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to. Especially when we have Tuesday meetings with Monday holidays.
So I would request a motion authorizing the use of that amount of notice of intent money for the purpose as discussed, and also requesting direction to make the request to the Board of Selectmen. And hopefully someone would be able to accompany me when the FinCom meets and we need to.
Just tell me. Yeah, whatever.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you.
This person would have to be working during your hours, right?
Yeah, the
Yeah, 'cause
16
you have to-
hours a week is actually, it dovetails into my open office hours for the 4 days.
Which is.
My office hours start at 9 and go to 12:30.
Yeah,
But
right.
technically, I'm usually always in the office before that, so, any administrative person can start, depending upon what's appropriate for their schedule or whatever, I
Yeah.
think we can work together. Obviously, the morning is the primary time. And something would possibly have to be worked out, since I do only have 2 computers and two chairs and 2 places to sit. But again, if it's only for the morning, it's entirely possible that the senior service, Jean Blanchard, could possibly come in the afternoon or
Right.
something. I mean, there's always administrative tasks that don't necessarily can be performed outside of the morning office hours. And it's actually my presence that is really the most critical for
Yeah.
signing off and reviewing things when people come around for building permits, et cetera.
Plus, there's gonna be some sort of ramp time, so this individual knows what they're expected to do.
Well, right,
Oh, yeah.
right.
And how to do it.
Anything else?
Well, returning to the agenda and the last status reports, permit and enforcements, 155 Newburyport Turnpike is the McDonald's Corporation, who's had an unclosed order of conditions for their septic system replacement from 2010. They came in needing a permit to do interior remodeling, and I requested the building inspector support my communication to them that they had an outstanding
get away
compliance
with it.
issue with the Concom, even though we don't sign off on interior renovations. So, I've had subsequent meetings with them, in fact, just this morning, with the firm that designed the septic system, is telling them what we needed for an as-built plan. And
Hopefully
also-
it'll go through. Yeah.
and also another testing of water quality monitoring. When their septic system failed in 2009, it resulted in some residual contamination of exceedances of ammonia in the groundwater in the site. And the commission had required them to do water quality monitoring up until the point they could demonstrate that the issue had been resolved. So the last testing they did still showed some moderately high levels of ammonia. And so there is the need for another round of testing, which now that it's rested for 6 years with a new system, we would hope that the new water quality testing will show that there aren't any issues with the groundwater. And that,
That is it?
I think, is it.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Amen.
Second. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Cut the camera. Oh, great, yeah, it's back like that.
Wow.
Jesus.